The Chinese car manufacturers have certainly put the cat amongst the pigeons in the Australian car market, but they haven't done it by just doing the same thing that existing car manufacturers have been doing it, but doing it a bit cheaper. Certainly price is an important part. But they have done it in some ways in their own ways. Most of the manufacturers are not afraid to build a car and call it something other than an SUV. Now they do that, but in not every situation. This week we're testing the MG3, and you can get it as a petrol or as a hybrid. But it is not an SUV, it's in the small sedan category. Now in that regard, it is not the smallest on the market, that is in the micro class. Now this week we're testing the MG3, and they call it a hatch. It's a word that is almost going out of use in our Australian context. But they're not afraid to build it as not an SUV, and it fits into the very small class, not the very, very small, the micro class, but one category smaller than, say, a Corolla might fit into. And they do it with a manner of the hybrid in particular that is a little different. And if you don't get that explained to you clearly when you buy the car, then you may be in, or you will be in, for quite a surprise in just a few situations. It's different. It's very different in a few situations. In fact, it's almost disruptive, particularly if you're not ready for it. Let's have a look around the car at its exterior design. So the front has a lot of activity, a good amount, yet it's got a bit of rounded edges to it that takes away from that very sharp square look that certainly that SUVs and utes are trying to do. So you have this big pod in the side here, and it's traditional in that shape, but then when you add this to it, which is more rounded, quite literally, it takes the edge off it, which I think is its point. It makes for a very big grille feature there, but again, it's not quite as angular and aggressive as some. Now, do they make this look like, or it is carbon fibre? I'll have to find out. Now, we go down the side, the wheels. Now, they're 55 profile, so they're not as low profile as some. 16-inch, interesting design, not quite as spoked, multiple spoked as that. The 5 spokes there with this a little bit of flared there. Looks a little bit like a column on a building that flares at the top to spread the load to the floor or the roof that it's supporting. Now, the other thing, the waistline, very strong. That is really quite sharp. Whereas the other lower line, which gives this swooping up sort of effect, is not as strong, but still prominent. And at the back, the waistline merges into the other line as well. I would say, let's have a look at it. I'll make sure I don't kill myself on the side of the road as to whether, oh, that is really quite strong, isn't it? In that bottom line, it might not be as quite angled as the top, but it still does make for a very strong side view to it. And the back, clearly not electric, but I don't expect they're all quite deep, really. Not necessarily quite along there, but very deep. No spare tyre. It just has this little pump-up thing. I've had some cumbersome experience without a spare tyre being available in the car. Very rare, but when it happens, it is very frustrating.
If you value independent journalism or simply enjoyed the video, please support the channel by hitting like and subscribe.
Pretty straightforward. That's quite a sizable amount of hybrid technology, as well as the engine, which is a 4-cylinder. So here we are in the MG3, and we've got the Hybrid Plus version. Actually, there's quite a lot of room here. I don't have electric seats on this. I have the Elite version. So it is a little bit difficult to adjust. First world problem. The layout. This is not huge. We have, what, a 9-inch screen, but, it's enough. The screen in front of me is not as wide as some. Perhaps a little bit compact in that regard. I don't have a head-up display. I do have a nice sunroof, if you like that sort of thing. I'm not a great fan. Not necessary in my mind. Now, I like the layout here. There's a little simple extra cup holders, extra space in here, which is actually quite usable. It's not, well, there is this huge, well, it's the back of this tray here. But by simply moving this tray, I can easily get into the front part of it. And I like it because I'm constantly having to put little things in there that I don't want to forget about in the back. The layout here, this looks almost a bit like an upmarket fridge in the use of its materials here, but I don't mean that necessarily. There's some very good fridges these days. On the dials here, they're not marked, so I'm not sure. Well, that would clearly be because of the buttons beside it. That would be to do with the cruise control. This I'm not sure of. Now, I've got here long press OK to reset. I like to do that for a trip. I like to reset it. Which is the OK button? Probably this one. No. But what you've got to do is you've actually got to move it over, I think. And then, no. Well, so moving it over was changing the music. I didn't want to do that. I'll press this little button here, which brings up a very small little image that says it's a car. So if I press this, it's not a car, so I presume it's to do with, setting. Lovely stuff. Jesse Norman, great singer, sadly passed away. Okay, so this is a sort of a toggle switch. Oh, and it's got that really, hasn't it? It's got a big screen, a little screen, suggesting it toggles between the two. Once I'm on the car one, the information, I can actually scroll through that, energy flow, power information, from start. Oh, well, it does that already. Accumulated total. You see, I reset that. I didn't have to. So I presume it always gives me from start as something it will record. I think overall that's rather good. Now, I put the seat right back there, but that's a bit length of arm stretching, which, by the way, means I can only move it up and down. I can't move it in and out. So while I quite like all that room for my legs, I've still got reasonable room when I bring my arms a bit closer. So I looked up their website. It's a little bit flashy for my mind, not in the sense of a modern range of a sequence of fairly quick images, but more in the flashy sense of it gives you a seizure. Perhaps that's me. But the other thing I found difficult, if you look up their website, you have trouble finding out how many gears this car has. I couldn't readily find it. I looked up AI and found that it, like its bigger brother, the ZS4 Hybrid Plus, it has 3-speed gearbox. And what that means is it really tries to let the battery do the role of gears 1 to 3. They're not geared, but that sort of range of performance. And then the normal internal combustion engine does more of the workload of the equivalent of gears 4, 5, and 6. That's the only ones they've got. So the numbering is not representative. Great idea while ever you have enough charge in the battery. And in order to achieve very good fuel economy, and there's no question it does that well, it uses the battery whenever it possibly can in day-to-day running, which sometimes leaves you a little out of sorts when you need it for an unusual, not so much emergency, but perhaps power up a long hill. And I will describe that in more detail by going back to a location which many years ago was the classic way of testing your car. If you went up this hill, the Bulleye Pass, and your car boiled, you knew that it wasn't as good as it might do, and many cars did. It was an old highway. But now I go back with a modern car, and most modern cars will accelerate up the hill no matter what, or no matter how steep it is, but not this one if you don't have enough power in the fairly small battery. I'm sitting here, I have 555 kilometres to go on the tank of petrol, using the hybrid as well. Normally I would go into the most heaviest regenerative braking so that I get as much regeneration back into the battery when I'm not accelerating, when I take my foot off the accelerator. But we will see that can have a little bit of a problem with the cruise control. Not a problem, but an uncomfortable feeling. It's immediately obvious that on Australian coarse aggregate roads, you're going to be conscious of the road noise, particularly as we are in the hybrid electric mode. It's gone to the electric motor, so there's no other noises. You're conscious of it, but perhaps it's not as bad as you might think. Now, the great problem with any new car and getting used to its features is that you can't practice on the cruise control while you're sitting quietly at home in the garage or whatever. You've got to be moving. And that in itself can create some distraction. So it's not quite the normal way. There is a minus and a plus. So I turn it on? No, it's on. Okay, so if I put the minus, it doesn't, so it's not a set function. Remember, most cruise controls have the pull down is both minus to adjust while you're already engaged with cruise control, or the set, but this doesn't have the set. So to set it, you actually have to press the little button here that indicates that I want lane keep assist. But I go back. There's two things about the cruise control. There are two levels you can set here. One is the basic cruise control, which is adaptive, which is good, but it won't allow you to select lane keep assist, even though I have that button on my steering wheel. But there is the more intelligent system which allows you to do it. So I'm in the intelligent system, appropriately or not. And so what I'm doing is I am going to set the cruise control. But I don't do that by pulling it down. Most cruise controls, you pull down to adapt it, negative, up, positive, if you're already on a speed and you want to vary it a bit. But you also, in most, pull it down and it sets it. This doesn't do that. If I'm in the intelligent cruise control, to set the cruise control, I have to press the button that indicates lane keep assist. I'm only doing 60, but if I press that, it's now showing me that it's 60k that it's holding me to. I'll increase that a little bit. And isn't it nice? This is what I like about a good hybrid. I'm sitting in a car park. I have the car still turned on, but the engine's not running. I'm not causing local pollution. Kids that walk past behind me aren't going to get carbon monoxide or dioxide fumes.
Have your own thoughts? We'd love to hear them, good, bad, or in between. Have a chat with us by dropping a comment below.